If we were to get 30% of the HVAC market, we would have to create or retain 5 million jobs. We would also hit every single goal of climate change, of grid stability, and of job security by doing that. And all we're doing is using your backyard or your schoolyard or your baseball field to deliver heating and cooling renewably to your facility.
Welcome to the Blue Ocean Solutions podcast, where we dive into real conversations with business owners, innovators, and industry leaders reshaping the future of clean tech, construction, and the renewable energy sector. I'm Creel Hutchinson, your host. Our guest today is Jack DiEnna, Executive Director and founder of the Geothermal National and International Initiative and Chairman of the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. Jack has spent 40 years fighting to bring ground source geothermal into the mainstream renewable conversation. And a single piece of legislation in 2025 just made that fight worth every single year. We're talking about a technology that already addresses 40% of America's primary energy use, hiding right beneath your feet. If you're in clean tech, construction, or energy infrastructure, this episode will change how you see the ground you're standing upon. Welcome to the podcast, Jack.
Thanks, Creel. It's good to be here.
I was really excited to have you on here because of your wealth of experience of really seeing so many changes within the renewable energy sector, but specifically your great work within geothermal. So for our audience that may not be familiar with you and the work that you've done, why don't you introduce yourself and give a little bit of your background?
Sure, thank you. As Creel said, I'm the Executive Director of the Geothermal National and International Initiatives. I'm also Chairman of the Board of the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. I started in this business when my utility that I worked for decided they wanted to go. I saw an opportunity that we could use the ground to heat and cool buildings. Whether anyone knows it or not, 40% of all the energy used in buildings is heating, cooling, and air conditioning. That uses 40% of all the primary energy. That's more than the transportation industry, but we never see this touted. We never see it on TV. We never see it written up. They always talk about cars and MPGs. Right now, my car is using zero. My house, whether I'm here or not, it's always on. So if we really wanted to decarb, it would be in buildings. It would not be in the transportation industry. So where this technology goes, I happen to be asked, I was a professional meeting planner, one of my jobs with the utility, and the DOE asked me to do a seminar from Oklahoma State University to every investor-owned utility. This is in 85. And in 85, there was no internet. We had to do it across the satellites. And while looking at it, I thought, this is pretty cool. Use your backyard to heat and cool your building. And I went to my chairman of the utility. I said, I think we should do this. As energy experts, the utility is the energy expert. Why don't we do this? And I said, I'd like to have $2 million. And he said, you can't come to a $5 billion company for $2 million. You've got to come for 20. And that's what we did. We did a presentation. It's the same presentation, just out of zero. 15 minutes later, he came out and said, I can't give you 20 million. I can only give you 15. And that's how we started. Our model was we did schools, hospitals, prisons, and developments. We didn't do onesie, twosie houses. And in 85, people didn't know what geothermal ground source was. So what I did is I went in and I said, I'm going to put this in your school and it's going to cost you zero. We're going to dig in the ground. We're going to put loops in the ground. And we're going to use your soccer field or your baseball field to heat and cool your building. And you don't have to pay me a cent. All you have to do is sign a contract for 20 years. And I guarantee you that your energy cost will be 10% to 15% lower than conventional. And by the way, none of these schools had air conditioning. So we actually gave them space conditioning. We improved their learning ability. We also we didn't know it at the time, but there's 2 studies right now that show that a heating-only school has a relative humidity of about 10%. 2 studies from Harvard Medical and Yale Medical state that higher relative humidity impedes transmission of respiratory viruses. So when we put geothermal in, it actually jumps that renewable or that relative humidity up to 50 to 55%. So unknowingly, we were not only giving them a better learning ability, but we're also giving them a safer, healthier school. That's how it started. And we did a number of jobs, probably about 10 schools, about 3 prisons and 2 developments. And then the Clinton administration formed a geothermal heat pump consortium. And they asked me to come up and evaluate where they were going. There was nothing on that committee that had anything to do with geothermal technology. So when I went up there, I reviewed their uh, their business plan and told them it was terrible. And they said, "Well, can you come work here?" And of course, I worked for utilities, so we made a deal, and I actually worked with them from 1987 or 1988 to 2006, spreading the word. And what we were doing, our goal was to put this technology out there, working with DOE, with federal energy management committees, and all the various state departments trying to get this in there. It worked fairly well, but it didn't really go as planned. I mean, there was the big problem here, Creel, is it's a higher first cost. In other words, the ground that we use, the technology we use, high density polyethylene, it lasts 50 to 100 years in the ground. But there's a cost to put that in the ground to capture the asset. That's what stifled us all these years, is the fact that when we went to a school and said, we'd like to do this, and it's going to cost you triple what a typical system would cost. Okay, do you want to do it? There's a lot that did it, but it presented a problem. Okay, so the big problem wasn't that the technology didn't work. It was the fact that it cost more, that there was a big upfront cost. Where this has changed now, we've had it when I was at GHPC, Geothermal Heat Pump Consortium, under Clinton and Bush. We did about 400 schools. Those schools are still using that, and we supported that with DOE grant money and things like that. But when DOE decided that we were off and running in 2006, we had less than 1% of the market share, but they wanted to move into solar and wind, so they forgot about geothermal. And by the way, at that point, geothermal heat pumps were not considered renewable, even though we're using the ground that renews every hour. So we weren't ever classified as renewable, so they sort of walked away from us. The International Ground Source Heat Pump Association was based out of Oklahoma State University. We do all the training, all the training for drillers, for installers, for designers, for architects and engineers. That's where you get the technology. The difference with this technology is if that ground loop goes in right, it's a good job for 50 to 100 years. If it goes in wrong, it's a bad job for 50 to 100 years. So you see the importance of the training that's needed. What happened then was we were still going, but we weren't getting our market share. In 2021, now we're going from 2006, and then we had a investment tax credit in 2008, and another one in 2017. It still didn't address the need for a renewable technology. In 2021, they finally saw the light with the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 and finally decided that, lo and behold, the ground is renewable, the technology is renewable, both ground-wise and above ground. So that was the big start of, gee whiz, it's a renewable technology. Now let's go. I've probably got 10 reports from national labs that say this is the answer. It reduces strain on the grid, it reduces emissions, it creates jobs, it does all those things. But lab reports are great. They're read once and put on a shelf, as you probably know, Creel. What's changed this is in 2025, the big beautiful bill changed the investment tax credit to include third-party ownership of the ground loop. So now they can follow the same model I did back in 85, and third-party investors can go and offer this technology to schools, hospitals, even Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and it's no cost up front. You get a monthly bill. That's where this is really changing. I'm talking to a number of people right now. We've got a group called Upstream Leasing. They're doing this. They're going at this wholeheartedly. They're working with Dandelion Energy, which is a Google company. They're doing developments now. So now we can put this in with no upfront cost, but it's giving you an asset for the next 50 to 100 years. And all you're doing is paying a monthly fee. The same as you would for your gas or your electric. We don't ask you to pay for an electric line or a gas pipe. It's all put into the bill. This is a distributed energy resource for utilities. It's also a non-pipeline, non wires alternative for them to use a renewable technology. That's the present. Here's what's happening now. We're getting more and more calls for, oh, you can own the loop. Wow. Can you call me? Harvard, yeah, all the higher education facilities are looking at this. Swarthmore College, where I live out of Philadelphia, they're putting a whole system in. Harvard has put it in. Ball State has put it in. So what we're seeing now is a reimagination of, gee whiz, we can use this. It's no longer climate change, although we reduce emissions. It's about grid stability. So for every ton of capacity, we reduce the peak load of the grid by 1 kW. So I'll give you an instance. My initiative is pre-K to 12 schools. 50% of our pre-K to 12 schools have failing HVAC systems. 50%. The average age of a school in the United States is 50 years old. Pardon. We are putting kids in schools that I'm 80 years old that I could have gone to. That's a crime. I talk to school boards all the time, and I usually have somebody my age saying, I didn't have air conditioning when I went to school. You also didn't have computers. You also didn't have the amount of interior heat gain that you have now. So, for instance, I did a school up in Fargo, North Dakota. It's 100% cooling dominated. Fargo, North Dakota has never put 1 ounce of backup in their loop. Fargo, North Dakota gets to be minus 20 at night, and they're still remaining cool and comfortable. So what I'm seeing now to get into the present is I'm busy. I've been in 4 states in 2 weeks of people wanting to get into this. And here's the other thing, Creel. One thing that, and I talk to legislators all the time. And remember one thing, legislators have one goal in mind. That is to get reelected. Okay. So what this technology does, let's just take a school. If we were to do a school, it touches 22 job classifications. 22 jobs classifications. So I've got an initiative called the Road to 30%. If we were to get 30% of the HVAC market, we would have to create or retain 5 million jobs. We would also hit every single goal of climate change, of grid stability, and of job security by doing that. And all we're doing is using your backyard or your schoolyard or your baseball field to deliver heating and cooling renewably to your facility.
It's incredible.
Sorry,
There's so much to absorb in there, just your wealth of understanding of this whole industry. I've heard you explain this technology as a triple E technology. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Sure. Triple E is energy security and stability, environmental stability and resilience and economic prosperity and sustainability there also. So it's energy, environment, and economy. Okay, all rolled into one. So this is a 90% trades When I say trades, it's blue collar. 90% of all our workforce is blue collar. So design, we have drillers, installers, pipe fusers, things like that. The other 10% is the sales, the engineering, the design, the architects, that type thing. So it really does hit a large workforce. I like to say that this technology is AI proof. You can't be replaced with AI when you're drilling a loop or you're putting in a heat pump. So for those people that are really worried about this, and that brings me to another whole sector of this, data centers. This is a 100% win for data centers. A large data center uses, excuse me, large data center uses 10 billion gallons of water annually. That's as much as a 15,000 person city. If you were to use a geothermal heat pump closed loop system, and there's a way to do this, you don't just drill in the ground. My idea is that we use a large lake loop. In all these data centers, they're sitting on hundreds of acres of land, so we do have a lot of room. There's another aspect of geothermal, direct use, where we would drill down and use direct use geothermal for the electricity. So we would take care of the problems with the grid, and we would take care of the problems with the water.
Amazing. You've said that the industry tends to be more reactive rather than strategic when it comes to marketing. There has never been a national commercial for geothermal heat pumps. Why has the industry let solar take that spotlight, and what would it take to change that?
That's a really great question, and we are doing that now with a program called Mission Geo. It's actually a collaboration between the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association and Geo Exchange, which is our legislative arm of this. To answer your question, solar got a lot of money. We didn't. Okay. Remember, up until 2025, they were this star. It was the interesting part about this, Creel, is that they didn't want us in it. Solar and wind actually didn't want us in it because for whatever reason, it's our sandbox. That's changed now because now geothermal, both deep G, direct use, and ground source are the stars of the show in this administration. To answer your question, the other problem is with our industry is you're either underground or inside. You don't see a solar panel on a roof. You don't see a wind turbine. You don't see anything. That's great if you're worried about the environment or actually the views, but it doesn't do us any good in the marketing because you could have it in your house, and unless I saw it being put in, you would never know it. So what right now we're doing a national initiative to show people just what you can do by walking outside, standing on your lawn, and realizing that I could heat and cool my house with my front lawn or my back lawn or my driveway or my school parking lot, whatever. So and we've been remiss also because we're actually for years, obviously only marketing this industry had, because 99% of our people are engineers or installers. They're not marketing people. They weren't, they're not salespeople. Now we're changing that. In fact, one of the things that's going to dramatically improve this industry is the fact that there are companies like Upstream Leasing that is now putting in programs for our installers that if they're sitting at a table with Mr. and Mrs. Jones, they can put in a program on their iPad and come up with a price and here's what it's going to cost you monthly. So we're going to take that high first cost out of the program. The other thing is we've got companies like Walker Blue who will do for commercial projects. They'll do the whole investment tax credit for you, making sure that you get every dime of that 30% or 40% or maybe even 50% of the total cost of that project. So that's where it's changing. And
Incredible.
If you look on LinkedIn, you'll see us more and more. Big jobs,
I want to revisit the big beautiful bill and the legislation that was in there enabling third-party ownership of ground loops. In plain English, Why is this regulatory unlock the industry's been waiting for 40 years? And who do you see moving fastest on it?
That's a great question. Why this changes the whole program is, remember I told you I did this back in '85, and I had no problem. I shouldn't
Yes.
say no problem, but it took away that her whole first cost. What has happened up till now is we've had residential investment tax credits that said if Creel puts it in at the end of the, when you do your taxes, you can take 25 or 30% off. But that means that somebody had to do it for you, that type thing. What this 30%, uh, what the 30% commercial investment tax credit, because the residential went away, by changing this actually changes the limited use property doctrine and allows commercial geosystems to be owned. So what this changes is, prior to this, you couldn't own it. Third party couldn't own your loop. Okay. They couldn't collect the investment tax credit because of the limited use property doctrine in the IRS. Okay. By changing that and allowing it, we're seeing people like upstream, and I'm mentioning that because they're the ones leading the pack right now. We're seeing them looking at this like a long-term investment, that people with money are coming in, and I'll address schools. Schools have no money. Okay. So for me to go into school and say, how would you like to spend $2 million on an upgrade of your heating system? They look at you like you're crazy. Now I can go in and say, we'd like to upgrade your heating system, and you don't have to pay anything up front. Okay. We can do this and give it to you, and all you do is pay for it over 20 years. Now the loop lasts 50 to 100. So at the end of 20 years, you can buy it out. What I used to do, at the end of 20 years, you pay me $1 and it's yours. Now, the difference there was every single one of the people that I sold this to bought it out within 8 years, because they figured, why am I paying this guy when I can own it myself, if you know what I mean? So that's where
Sure.
this is changing. This third party is bringing in money people that see the vision of grid stabilization, of, I don't have to put in a solar panel that only works 14 hours a day. The ground works 24/7, 65 days a year. So it's not intermittent. Okay. It's definitely not intermittent. So it's a very, very large asset to own. So that's where it's going to change. That's why in the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association, which does all the training, we've just upgraded all of our training. So if you wanted to be a driller or installer or designer, whatever, you can come to our website and purchase that training. Because once again, I will tell you, one of my roles is not only to protect the integrity for the end user, but to also protect the integrity of the technology. Because what's interesting about this, Creel, is the fact that your house could blow up with gas tomorrow. And they would say, gee whiz, it's too bad Creel's house blew up. But if you didn't, they put gas in it right after you rebuilt. If your house didn't work on geothermal doesn't work this side of the planet. So we're very, very cautious about who's doing what. That's why we want trained people. We want people that want to get into this to be trained. We want end users to ask for resumes. Have you done this before? Remember, if the ground loop goes in bad, you can't pull it out. Okay. Unlike a heat pump, an air source heat pump. Now, here's an interesting fact that the Energy Office of Maryland Energy Authority, just did a study uh, looking at what's happening now, air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps. They're finding out that the peak load when you go all air source jumps up to 18 gigawatts. If you put, right now it's 12 conventional. If you put geo in, it goes down to 10. The difference being air source heat pumps have reheats. They've got auxiliary heating systems. We don't have that with geothermal systems. We're using the ground. That's it.
Interesting. So as you see the industry continuing to grow and expand with this like shift in perspective from legislation point of view, how does certification and standards for installers, how is that going to be moving forward so that we can really protect customers and the credibility of the industry?
That's why I'm saying to you what we're saying in all of our literature is, if because here's the problem, Creel. When anything gets popular, which I'm sure you know, there are people who go out and buy a magnetic sign and become an expert. Now, uh, I've I have two problems right now that I'm trying to deal with, because the customer didn't say, and these are big projects. The customer didn't say, "Have you done this before?" They took their word for it. In fact, one customer, very large customer, chose a designer because he had a good website. Not a good way to choose a designer. So I would say to you, to protect the end user, to protect everybody involved, including our industry, ask for their resume, ask for their certifications, ask for what trainings they've had. You would do the same thing when you choose, say, a doctor. You would do the same thing if you choose anything that's going to, you just don't go out and hire a roofer. You want to hire someone that is actually going to do a good job. That's the same way with this. We have certifications and accreditations through the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association, and there are states that are sponsoring this training. New York, Pennsylvania, Colorado, they're sponsoring this training because they know we need more people. I'm going to tell you, the thing that's stifling us right now is we need more drillers, people that can drill the ground loop. Now it's building up. In fact, I was just actually on the phone with your home country, Ireland, today, this morning at 7 o'clock, talking about this becoming a gigantic issue in Ireland. All over the world, let's face it, energy is a problem everywhere. We happen to use more energy here than anywhere else. And by the way, just so you know, pre-K to 12 schools are the second largest public infrastructure buildings that there is. And they use 8% of all the primary energy of commercial buildings. So we've let them go south. We haven't paid much attention to them. And I think our kids are suffering. We're paying large utility bills when in fact we could be helping them not only learn better, but also creating jobs and showing the kids of today that you can use a renewable and it isn't painful. All you're doing is using the ground you own.
Yeah, no, it's you raised some really great points. As we look towards the future here, what do you see? Well, both your participation, at this stage in your career, what's your, strategic goals over the next, 1 to 2 years, and then where do you see the industry over the course of, the next 5, 10 years?
Personally, I'm going to be doing what I'm doing now till I can't do it any longer. My wife once said to me, "I'd like you to retire at 80." Well, I'm 80, and she's only 60. So if I retire, she's going to have to want to retire. So, but where I see this happening, why I see this really being our time, is we've just the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association and Geo Exchange. We just had a strategic meeting in Oklahoma all last week, and we finally recognized where our needs are, and the needs are training, our marketing, and that's what we're doing. And why I see this changing is I'm getting calls from big money people, BlackRock, people that see the value in this, much the same way they saw the value in electric cars and things like that. This is a little bit different because once you put it in, it's good for 50 to 100 years. And they see the value in that. They see the value in, we've got to do something to stabilize our grid. Okay. And it isn't going to be stop using what you're using. It isn't going to be, oh, gee whiz, we have all electric cars. That's not going to happen. So how about if we use one of the big 40% of all the primary energy used is heating, cooling, and water heating. How about if we address those in our buildings? How about if we start with schools? I'll tell you a little story. I did a school in uh, in Valley Stream. It's in Long Island. It was built in 1957. I could have gone to that school as a child. We put geothermal technology in that school using, it was a partnership between HBA, Bosch, American Water, and the Public Utility Commission Public Service Commission of New York. What happened with that school is their grades went up by about 40%. Their attendance, their truancy or lack of attendance went down 35%. That's in children and in teachers. And they've saved $6,000 that year, even though we added space conditioning, and they actually rented out their school in the summer and made another $9,000. That's a school that was built in 1957. So anything that was built prior to, say, 1985 is going to be heating only. Okay. And if you're where I live in the Northeast, all the way to middle America, 90% of all the schools are heating only. Now, a little story about that Valley Stream school. That's a 90% free lunch, meaning it's in a depressed area. I probably get 5 calls a month from families saying, how do I put this in my home? My kids came home and told me how comfortable they are. Their grades went up. So to the point of marketing, when we put it in a school, we actually build the marketing 25 classes at a time, 25 kids at a time in each class, because it's no longer a mystery. I still have people saying to me, how does it work? When I tell them everybody's got one in their house, it's a refrigerator. It works the same way, except it reverses. The inside of the refrigerator is cold. Underneath or in back, it's hot. Same thing here. It's the ground. If you need cooling, the ground is 50. Where I live, it's 58 degrees. No matter if it's 100 degrees or 20 degrees, the heat pump's seeing 58 degrees. That's the difference with this technology. That's how we reduce the strain on the grid.
I love it. So this has been such an insightful conversation, as I've been a big fan of geothermal. I love walking into geothermal homes and environments and commercial spaces. So I really am looking forward to this technology really having a more prominent seat at the table when it comes to the renewable conversation. For people who want to continue and share in your work and follow you in the process and the progress inside the industry, where's the best place for people to get a hold of you?
Well, you can go to my website, www.geo-nii.org, or you can get me in my LinkedIn, which is the Geothermal National and International Initiative, or you can email me at DiEnna@. I would suggest, if they really want to learn more about this, to also go to the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association, gshpa.org. Go to that website. You can join if you want to get into this, either a designer, installer, architect, engineer, whatever. We have training for that. You can pick that up right off our website. If you have questions, feel free to email me or call me at 610-659-4998. I work from 7 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. So this is a passion. When I first got into this, I've got a plaque on my wall that says, definition of passion is, you're going to see a lot of things that catch your eye in your lifetime, but only a few that'll catch your heart. Follow those. And I've done that for the past 40. So I'm telling you, I wish I was your age, quite frankly, because this is going to be exciting. It's exciting now, but it's going to be even more exciting. And when I see the young people that can come into this, we just had our annual conference. We had about 500 people there. 1/3 of them were new, and a third of them were young. Okay, and that means that we're getting through to the college kids, to the kids that don't feel that they need to go to college. They want to work with their hands. To returning service vets. I'm got a program now with MediaMark Spotlight. We're targeting returning service people that have been 4 to 8 years. They usually go in the service. I'm a veteran myself as a naval officer, but the kids that normally go into service, they do it because they're not going to go to college. So let's give them a way to make a living if they choose not to go to college, working with their hands. Like I said, we're AI proof. I guess you and I are AI proof also. So at least for now.
Yeah.
I know I am.
Jack, I really enjoyed having you on the podcast, sharing your wealth of information and really being like a spokesperson and ambassador for the entire geothermal industry. I thank you for your contributions through all of that, as I'm sure our guests or our viewership will also. To our audience, if you've enjoyed the conversation as much as I've had, please make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, and share the podcast forward to maybe someone who's interested in geothermal and wants to learn a little bit more. This would be a great place to get started. Jack, thank you so much once again for all of your efforts and being on the podcast. To our audience,
Creel,
this wraps up another episode of Blue Ocean Solutions Podcast. Take care.
take care.